So today we're going to talk about competitiveness, and we're going to use the model the Porter's Diamond to analyze the Danish wind power industry. And we'll get through all of these things here: the diamond analysis of the Danish wind turbine industry, factor conditions, firm strategy, structure and rivalry, demand conditions, related and supporting industries and clusters, government and chance, and then we'll end it all with a conclusion of the Danish competitiveness. Enjoy. Yes, so I'll talk about the yeah, yes, and I'll start by talking about the factor conditions, and he'll start with infrastructure. In Denmark, we have a 74 109 kilometers of road in Denmark, 2,649 kilometer railway, and this railway is a frequent international. It's frequently used for international cargo trains um, through the whole of Europe, and it's very integrated and a comprehensive road system. We have 11 airports, 124 harbors, and more than 64 million tons of goods are loaded and unloaded every year in these harbors, and 75% of our goods are exported um, or shipped by sea. And we are number 10 in infrastructure in Europe. And this is a very high placement, but we also invest 7% points more than the European average, as we can see on the picture here. Um, so so we use a lot of money, but it pays off as well. But Sweden, they only invest 59%, which is 3% less than the average, and they are actually number 3 in Europe. So that's really astonishing how you can invest less and still be that high. So we should maybe take a look at those Swedish people and find out how to do this. And recommendations for the Danish infrastructure, it's very good. As we can see, number 10 in Europe, we can be proud of that. And how we could improve this was by using all the data we get. And we get a huge amount of data that we could be able to analyze on and to find out what can we do to get better. And we should focus on the areas where a lot of traffic, the traffic places where there's a lot of people who have to find out how to make this better, how to make the traffic more smooth, so we won't get a lot of delays and stuff. And I could be looking at the chart that I have found here, where we can see what are people what are they doing in these rush hours. What do you see? 28% is for spare time, 50% shopping, etc., etc. Find out how to navigate these people in different directions, for example, and then find profitable solutions. I just took this one that the government made to see what is worth and what is not worth. So you have to find something where you'll get something that the government will be able and happy to do, so they can earn money as well. And then last but not least, use intelligent traffic system. This system is IT based, and it could be, for example, variable speed limits, to take an example. And these speed limits would be set up on the road, and then they would differ because of different factors. That could be weather, that could be density. So if it's bad weather, then the speed limit would be lower, or something like that. and if there's a lot of density, traffic lowered, or if it's good weather, higher speed limit, you know where I'm talking, you know where I'm getting at. So that's just a couple of solutions for the Danish infrastructure, but overall, it's already very good, and we can be proud. And this definitely gives us an competitive advantage. If you look at some of the other countries that doesn't have the same infrastructure as us. And education and skilled labor here in the Danish wind power industry, all levels of education is needed. We need somebody who can build these wind machines. We need somebody who can sell them. We need someone who can innovate. We need someone who can get them out on the market, etc., etc. We need all kinds of education, and it's blue collar workers mostly, and they are highly trained in this industry, and they're very willing to adapt to new conditions, and they recognize that innovation is imperative, and most employees continue to update their skills throughout their working lives, which is a huge, a very good thing for the wind power, a huge advantage. And to look at some of the schools that is a good way to get into this business, that could be the Technical University of Denmark, University of Aalborg, University of Aarhus, and University of Southern Denmark. And you might look and see that this is partially over in Jutland and a little bit on Fyn, and that's actually because we have the biggest wind power industries is situated in Jutland, and it's therefore these schools is placed here, and it's where you can get the education needed. And I just took this quote here. A strong network between companies and research institutions is furthered through interdisciplinary collaboration at a wide range of test facilities, as well as numerous other initiatives in Denmark. I took this quote because I think it's very good, and it shows that you need to have this strong network between the companies in the wind power industry, and then all this research institutions. There's some, you can see some of them here, some of the companies or the research institutions that the Danish wind power industries collaborate with, and it's very important to keep on being, the top here in the Danish wind power industry, and it definitely gives us an advantage to always stay on top here in this category. And climate, it's a very good climate here in Denmark for the wind power industry. We have it's very windy, so it's definitely a good place. So it's good for the industry, and it can give us an advantage over some countries. If you look at, for example, Africa, you wouldn't start a wind power industry here. Well, you might, but it would be tough to compete with someone like us because you just don't have the same test facilities, etc. So that's an advantage.
Yes, and then I would like to talk a little bit about firm strategy, structure, and rivalry in the Danish wind power industry. And the Danish wind power industry is quite large industry. It has more than 250 members, and these members are headlined by companies like Vestas and Siemens, which are the largest companies in the Danish wind power industry. If you look at it by a world scale, the Danish wind turbine industry is the world's largest, and the World Economic Forum ranked Denmark as the 6th best energy security in 2014 in their global rankings for energy architecture performance. This is a graph showing the development of the turnover in the Danish wind industry from 2006 to 2015 in euros. And as you can see, the Danish wind power industry has some great years just up to the financial crisis. Then, of course, like pretty much everything else, it decreases. But since after the financial crisis, it has seen a steady increase, and 2015 was the best year since the financial crisis. This is a graph showing the wind industry's exports from 2016 to 2015. And this is also in euros. And you can see that the curve moves a little bit up and down. But the most important thing here is that from 2006 to 2015, Danish exports have risen with 22.6%. This is a graph showing the number of full-time employees and the development of that. And as you can see, it follows the turnover rate. It goes up and has its best years just around the financial crisis. Then after financial crisis, it decreases. Then it's seen a steady increase ever since. And the increase from 2014 to 15 is at 3.8%. And by the end of 2015, there were 31,251 people employed in the wind industry. The last graph I wanna talk about right now is the share of wind energy of the total electricity consumption from 2006 to 2015. And as you can see, it pretty much increases all the way from 2006, where it was down at around 15%, and all the way to just over 40% in 2015. And kind of to summarize how it is growing in the industry, the CEO of the Danish Wind Industry Association, his name is Jan Hylleberg, says that the continuing growth in employment and yearly turnover is very positive. It shows we are on the right track and that Denmark is a real player in the foreign wind markets. And if you look at the jobs which the wind industry generates in Europe, Denmark is responsible for around 12.5% of all the wind-related jobs in Europe. And for the future, Denmark has decided to lead the transition to green growth energy and become entirely independent of fossil fuels by 2050. And this is also something that helps the industry because the government supports it with initiatives. And the initiatives work as a one-step service for foreign companies and individuals looking to invest in the Danish wind industry.
Okay, in terms of demand conditions, we can talk about how the outlook for growth in the Danish economy is high, is good. It looks like there's potential for even more growth than has been the case in the previous years. And this is related to the fact that consumer confidence is at its highest since the crisis. So that basically just means that aggregate demand in the country is high, which is a good thing in terms of economic growth. Now, in general, we talk about how Danish consumers always expect the highest quality in the services and in the goods they purchase, and that of course leads companies to adjust their product portfolio accordingly, and that has of course meant an overall quality increase in their products, which means a relative increase in competitiveness overall compared to other countries where perhaps consumers are not so demanding. In terms of technological advancements or technical advancements, we here in Denmark expect our companies to be up to date in terms of technology, and that's seen in the widespread activity on the internet as well as the high smartphone penetration here in Denmark. Now, really, this has changed the way Danes shop and they buy, because as you see here, 2.1 million Danes go online, and that's in 2014, I might add, go online on a mobile device every single day, compared to only 1.3 million back in 2012. And now, of course, that number is only going to increase come the future and come new generations, who are perhaps more accustomed to these technologies. Therefore, as I said, Danish companies are expected and required to stay up to date with advanced technology, and that will of course increase relative competitiveness. Now, finally, we in Denmark, the consumers in Denmark, are very aware of environmental issues, and that is to such a large degree that recently reasoning behind spending has actually become influenced by our our beliefs and politics in terms of the environment. And specifically for the wind industry, that means, of course, a strengthened interest in buying wind power. But also for many of the related industries, it means actually a huge potential in the country for bigger and higher profit margins, which is, of course, a great thing. Yes, so in terms of related and supporting industries and clusters, let's start by talking about the transporting or logistics industry. As we all know, the transporting and logistic industry is very strong in Denmark, and that's of course related to the high level of infrastructure we have and enjoy in the country. The industry is led by the Maersk Industries, the Maersk Group, but is actually characterized by an extensive variety of logistic facilities. And so this basically means that it allows for other industries to flourish, just based on the fact that the logistics industry is so strong in the country. We've then got the fact that there are hundreds and hundreds of companies within the wind industry in Denmark, and that means that wind industry companies in the country can interact with them in terms of research and development, production, testing, and legal activities, which makes the everyday business easier and ultimately makes competitiveness of the industries higher. Now we've got sort of a geographical cluster in the country, due to the fact that 79% of all jobs have its base in Jutland and south of Denmark, so that's west of the Great Belt. But overall, the industry allows and creates jobs in the whole of Denmark. Now, there are not only clusters in terms of the wind industry, but also in many other industries. For example, the pharmaceutical industry, which is very strong in the country, the agricultural industry, where we are one of the top countries in terms of technology, and basically all this is due to, well, not all of it, but much of it is due to government encouragement, related, of course, to institutional competitiveness. And basically it just means that the government aids and encourages these clusters, these private sector clusters, which makes it more competitive to be in Denmark, I suppose. Okay, and so in terms of government and chance, let's start by talking about the government. The government in Denmark plays a large and extensive role in the control and regulation of certain industries, but historically has actually provided financial aid, financial leeway, etc., for the industries it deems worthy, and these positive and generous policies towards many industries have actually helped competitiveness in these industries. Now, when I talk about how certain industries have to make themselves worthy in the eyes of the government, it's of course related to the environment, as I talked about before, because of course the government doesn't want to further the interests of industries which are frowned upon in terms of environmentalists. So basically, the industries that pollute a lot. Now, I should like to mention here the Blue Bloc government, because in Denmark we right now have a very liberal government compared to previously anyway, and that of course represents a huge opportunity for lots of industries in the country, because these liberal blue parties would of course want competitiveness overall to increase, and that is a great thing for the industries themselves. Now, all of this I have just talked about is of course related to institutional competitiveness, which is, the fact that many theorists talks about, and many theories even talks about, how a large public sector should have adverse effects on the country's ability to compete. But in the case of Denmark and the Danish economy, it actually seems to strengthen certain industries' ability to compete internationally, thereby, of course, strengthening competitiveness in the country overall. Now, finally, in terms of chance, some would, of course, argue that the general environment movement in the Western world over the past few decades have spurred interest for and, of course, economic interest in the wind power industries and many other renewable energy technologies. So that, of course, has played a role in the fact that the renewable energy market is so strong as it is today.
So, all in all, how is the Danish competitiveness? Well, if we start off by looking at infrastructure, we can see that the Danish infrastructure is very, very strong. We have some great logistics, and also if you look at the wind power industry, it is very strong. Denmark are world leaders in some aspects and leaders in Europe, and the wind power industry is helped by government aid, and also because of the increasing consumer spending, Denmark is seeing some growth, not a lot, but some growth. And with government aids and a general environmental movement in the Western world, where people are getting more aware of all these environmental problems, they're seeing all this plastic in oceans and all kinds of videos showing that we need to take care of the environment for the future. We can see that the Danish competitiveness is very, very strong. As I said, we are world leaders, or at least the European leaders, in a lot of aspects, and we have this plan of being completely green by 2050. So all this helps provide a very strong competitive Danish wind power industry. And with the new government here being liberal, we might see them trying to lower company taxes, which would make it even more profitable to be a company in Denmark. So we believe that in this aspect, Danish wind power industry is very, very strong.